My name is Clara Bennett and I'm 26 years old. 3 weeks ago, my parents sold my grandmother's antique piano, the one she explicitly left to me in her will, and used all $95,000 to put a down payment on a house for my sister Madison. They thought Grandma was too frail in hospice to ever know. They thought I was too afraid of conflict to tell her. They were wrong. When I finally broke down and told Grandma what they'd done, she didn't weep. She didn't plead. She simply picked up her phone, dialed one number, and spoke 8 words that would unravel everything my parents had built their comfortable lives on. Before I tell you what those 8 words were and what happened at Madison's housewarming party 3 days later, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what brought you here today. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, the evening my grandmother was moved to hospice care. The call came on a Thursday night, just as I was finishing my shift at the Community Arts Center. Grandma Rose collapsed, my mother said, her voice tight and businesslike. They're transferring her to hospice tonight. We're meeting at Riverside Memorial in 45 minutes. Don't be late. No, are you okay? No, I know how close you two are. Just an order. I grabbed my keys and drove through rain that matched the knot tightening in my chest. When I arrived, my parents and Madison were already positioned in the hospice family lounge like they were posing for a portrait. My father, Michael Bennett, stood by the window in his tailored suit, checking his Rolex. My mother, Patricia, perched on the edge of a chair, her designer handbag placed carefully beside her. And Madison, 24, blonde, effortlessly beautiful, sat scrolling through her phone, occasionally showing our mother something that made them both smile. Finally, my father said when he saw me. No hug. No acknowledgement of the tears I was barely holding back. We need to establish a schedule. Your mother and I have the firm to manage. Madison's interviewing for that position at the Harrison Group. The Harrison Group. Her boyfriend Tyler's family company. A job she'd mentioned wanting but hadn't actually applied for yet. Someone needs to be here daily, my father continued. Since you only work part-time at that community center thing, Clara, you have the most flexibility. That thing was a program I'd built from nothing, teaching music to underprivileged kids, running after-school workshops, organizing recitals. 23 students who called me Miss Clara and waited for me every Tuesday and Thursday. But I didn't correct him. Of course, I said quietly. I want to be with her. Perfect. My father was already turning back to his phone. Keep us informed of any major changes. As I walked down the hallway toward Grandma Rose's room, I heard my mother's voice float behind me, low but not quite low enough. Well, at least the overlooked child is finally useful for something. Madison's laugh followed. I didn't turn around. I kept walking, my worn canvas flats silent on the linoleum, my second-hand cardigan suddenly feeling thinner. Not because I hadn't heard them, but because I'd heard some version of that sentence my entire life, and somewhere along the way, I'd stopped believing I deserved to defend myself. Grandma Rose's room smelled like jasmine and old leather. She'd insisted they bring her favorite things, the jasmine oil diffuser, her grandmother's quilted blanket, the leather-bound poetry books she'd collected for 60 years. They want everything to smell like death and disinfectant, she told the nurse on intake. I refuse. If I'm dying surrounded by beauty. She was 78, fierce as a storm, and losing her battle with congestive heart failure. The doctors had given her 3 weeks, maybe a month if she defied the odds the way she'd defied everything else in life. I visited every single day. Sometimes twice. We talked about music, her years singing in jazz clubs across New York, my students who couldn't read sheet music yet but could feel a rhythm in their souls. We talked about poetry, about the garden she'd tended for 50 years, about everything except the fact that she was leaving me. One evening, about a week into her hospice stay, she reached for my hand. Her grip had weakened, but her dark eyes were sharp as ever. Clara, she said, there's something you need to understand about the piano. I knew which piano. Everyone in the family knew. The Steinway. The 1890 concert grand that had belonged to her mother, my great-grandmother Margaret. The piano I'd learned to play on when I was 6 years old, the instrument that had been my refuge during every lonely childhood evening while Madison got all the attention and I got all the chores. "Grandma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." Her voice was soft but absolute. "That piano is yours, Clara. It's always been yours." I showed up at Grandma's house on a Saturday morning, the way I had every weekend for the past 10 years. The key was still hidden under the third stone in the garden path, the one shaped like a heart. I let myself in, already imagining the weight of the keys under my fingers, the particular resonance of middle C that always sounded like coming home. The living room was empty. Not just quiet. Empty. The space where the Steinway had stood for as long as I could remember, longer than I'd been alive, was now just a rectangle of darker hardwood, an outline of absence. The piano bench was gone. The embroidered cover Grandma had draped over the keys. Even the small framed photo of great-grandmother Margaret that had always sat on top. All of it. Gone. I stood there, my bag still on my shoulder, my sheet music clutched in suddenly numb fingers. Maybe they'd moved it. Maybe it was being cleaned, restored, tuned. Maybe. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Before you overreact, we had to make a practical decision. Madison needed help with her down payment. The piano was just sitting there. You understand." I read it 3 times. The words didn't change. Another buzz. This time an Instagram notification. Madison had tagged me in a post. I opened it with shaking hands. There was my sister, champagne flute raised, standing in front of a charming Cape Cod house with blue shutters and a wraparound porch. Her smile was radiant. Her boyfriend Tyler had his arm around her waist. The caption read, "Homeowner at 24. House with garden sparkles, so incredibly blessed to have parents who believe in investing in my future. Dreams really do come true when you have a family that supports you. #blessed, #homeowner, #first home, #family first." The comments were already rolling in. "So happy for you. Your parents are amazing. Living your best life, Queen." I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring. "Clara, I'm at the salon." "Where's the piano?" A pause. A sigh. "We sold it. I told you in the text. That piano was Grandma's. She left it to me. Grandma's in hospice, sweetheart. She doesn't need a piano. And Madison needed a down payment. The market is brutal for first-time buyers. Your father and I discussed it, and frankly, you only play it occasionally. It was a hobby, not a career." "A hobby." My voice sounded strange, distant. "Don't be dramatic. Madison is building a life. She's getting married, buying a home, becoming an adult. You're still teaching children to bang on keyboards at a community center. We had to prioritize the child who's actually going somewhere. Grandma promised me that piano. And when Grandma passes, God willing not for a long time, there will be other things in the estate. You'll get your fair share. But right now, Madison needed this. You understand, don't you? You've always been the understanding one." She hung up before I could answer. I stood in the empty living room, staring at the ghost of the piano, and understood perfectly. I'd never mattered at all. The invitation arrived 3 days later. Cream cardstock with gold embossed lettering. "Madison and Tyler invite you to celebrate their new beginning. Housewarming party. Saturday 2 p.m. Cocktail attire suggested." I held it over my kitchen trash can for a full minute before my mother called. "You're coming to Madison's party?" "Not a question. I don't think. Clara, this is family. Your sister is proud of her accomplishment. The least you can do is show up and be supportive. Unless you want everyone asking why you're not there. Unless you want to be the bitter, jealous sister who can't be happy for her own family." So I went. The house was everything Madison had ever wanted. The kind of home featured in lifestyle magazines, with its blue shutters and professional landscaping and a mailbox that looked like it had never seen an actual bill. Cars lined both sides of the street, luxury sedans, SUVs with price tags higher than my annual salary. I parked my 12-year-old Honda 3 blocks away and walked. Music and laughter spilled from the open front door. I smoothed down my simple black dress, the same one I wore to every family function because it was the only one nice enough, and stepped inside. Clara. Madison spotted me immediately, gliding over in a flowing white sundress that probably cost more than my rent. She hugged me, all performance, her perfume overwhelming. "You made it. Come, you have to see everything." She linked her arm through mine before I could respond, pulling me into the foyer. Marble tile. A chandelier that caught the afternoon light and scattered it like diamonds. A floating staircase that curved upward with wrought iron railings. "Tyler's parents helped us find this place," Madison was saying, her voice bright and practiced. "It was off-market. The previous owners were friends of the Harrisons. We got so lucky." Lucky. The word stuck in my throat. She paraded me through room after room. The gourmet kitchen with its white marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. The living room with vaulted ceilings and a fireplace framed in imported tile. The dining room that could seat 12, already furnished with a table that looked like it belonged in a castle. And this, Madison pushed open French doors to reveal a sunroom, is going to be my creative space. For my lifestyle blog. Tyler setting up ring lights and a photography backdrop next week. People followed us in clusters. Friends from Madison's college sorority, colleagues from Tyler's family business, my parents' country club acquaintances. Everyone cooing and congratulating. Everyone remarking on Madison's taste, her luck, her wonderful parents. "Your mom and dad must be so proud," a woman in pearls said. "Helping you get started like this. Not many parents can do that these days." "They're amazing," Madison beamed. "They've always believed in investing in the future. In family." I stood there, smiling a smile that felt carved into my face, while my inheritance funded every compliment, every envious glance, every moment of my sister's celebrated success. In the kitchen, my mother held court with a group of her friends, a glass of champagne in her manicured hand. She saw me and waved me over. "There she is. My other daughter. Clara teaches music to children. It's very fulfilling for her." The way she said fulfilling made it sound like a consolation prize. "How sweet," one of the women said, the kind of sweet that meant quaint. Small. Unambitious. "We're just so thrilled Madison is settling down," my mother continued. "The Harrison family is wonderful. Tyler's father and Michael do business together. It's really the perfect match." I excused myself before anyone could ask what I was doing with my life, before I had to hear again how Madison was building something while I was still playing around with hobbies. I found my father on the back patio, discussing something with Tyler and a group of men in expensive casual wear. He saw me and nodded, a brief acknowledgement, before turning back to his conversation. I hadn't expected more. The house tour continued. Madison showed off the master bedroom with its walk-in closet the size of my entire studio apartment. The guest room she was converting into a home office. The bathroom with its soaking tub and heated floors. "And the best part," she said, leading everyone back downstairs, "is that we got such an amazing deal. The market is insane right now, but Mom and Dad helped with the down payment, which meant we could make a cash offer and skip the bidding war. We were so blessed." Blessed. That word again. Someone asked her how much, and Madison laughed, deflecting with practiced humility. "Let's just say we're very grateful. Family is everything, you know?" I watched her bask in the attention, in the achievement, in the life built on the scaffolding of what was supposed to be mine. Not once did she look at me with anything resembling guilt or acknowledgement. Not once did her expression suggest she knew this house had cost me anything. Because to Madison, to my parents, to everyone here, this was simply how things worked. Madison got what she needed. Madison got what she wanted. And I got to watch, smile, and be grateful I was included at all. Later, as the party reached its champagne-fueled peak, I found myself alone in that sunroom, staring out at the perfectly manicured backyard. The space where Madison would photograph her perfect life for strangers on the internet. My phone buzzed. A text from the hospice. Your grandmother is asking for you. She says it's important. I looked back at the party one more time. At Madison, radiant and celebrated. At my parents, proud and beaming. At the house built with $95,000 that should have been used to honor a dying woman's wishes. I grabbed my purse and walked out. No one noticed me leave. I didn't go straight to the hospice. I couldn't. Not with my face still hot from suppressed tears, not with Madison's laughter still ringing in my ears. I drove home instead, to my cramped studio apartment with its peeling paint and radiator that clanged through winter nights. I needed to breathe. I needed to remember who I was before I became the family ghost. The apartment was small enough that cleaning it took less than an hour on good days. Today wasn't about cleaning. Today was about rage with nowhere to go. I started pulling things out of my closet, old textbooks, boxes of sheet music, winter clothes I hadn't worn in years. Anything to keep my hands busy, to stop them from shaking. That's when I found the shoebox. It was pushed to the very back of the top shelf, covered in dust. I didn't remember putting it there. I pulled it down and sat on my bed, the cardboard soft with age. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, all in Grandma Rose's elegant cursive, all addressed to me. Cards from birthdays I'd forgotten. Notes she'd tucked into my backpack before piano competitions. Letters she'd sent when I went to college, each one encouraging me to keep playing, keep creating, keep being myself. I unfolded one at random, dated 3 years ago. My dearest Clara, I watched you play Chopin yesterday and I saw your great-grandmother in every note. You have her gift, not just for music, but for feeling it, for letting it speak what words cannot. The Steinway is yours, my darling. It was always meant for you. I've made certain of that. My hands trembled as I reached for another letter, this one from just last year. Clara, I need you to know something important. The piano, the Steinway, is legally protected in my estate. I've worked with my attorney, Jonathan Chen, to ensure it goes to you and you alone. Not to be sold. Not to be divided. Not to be shared by the family. It's for Clara and Clara alone, my musical granddaughter, who has my heart. Your mother doesn't know about the protection clause. She doesn't need to. But you do. When the time comes, Jonathan will make sure my wishes are honored. I read it again. Then again. Protection clause. My heart was pounding now. I dug through the box with desperate hands, scattering envelopes across my bed until I found what I was looking for, a letter dated just 6 months ago, right before Grandma's first hospitalization. Dearest Clara, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I want you to know that I protected what's yours. The Steinway cannot be sold or transferred without violating the terms of my trust. I established this years ago because I know my daughter. I know how she sees you, and I know how she sees Madison. I won't let her erase you even after I'm gone. The piano is yours by law. Jonathan Chen has all the documentation. Trust him. Trust yourself. And remember, you were never the problem, my darling girl. You were never too much or too little. You were always exactly enough. With all my love, Grandma Rose. The letter fell from my hands. They'd sold it. They'd sold something they had no legal right to sell. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the hospice text. Your grandmother is asking for you. She says it's important. I knew, suddenly, what she wanted to tell me. And I knew I couldn't keep protecting people who had never protected me. The hospice hallways were too quiet at night. Just the hum of machines and the occasional murmur of voices behind closed doors. I signed in at the nurse's station at 8:47 p.m., my hands still shaking, the letters folded in my purse like evidence. Grandma Rose's room was at the end of the hall. Soft light spilled from under her door. I paused outside, trying to compose my face, to smooth away the evidence of crying in my car for 20 minutes. I would tell her I loved her. I would hold her hand. I would not burden a dying woman with the ugliness her daughter had created. I pushed open the door. She was awake, propped up on pillows, her reading glasses perched on her nose. A book of Mary Oliver poems lay open in her lap. When she saw me, she closed it slowly and removed her glasses. "Clara." Her voice was soft but steady. "Come here, sweetheart." I crossed the room and sat in the chair beside her bed, the same chair I'd occupied every day for 3 weeks. I reached for her hand, prepared to deliver my cheerful update about work, about my students, about anything except the truth. "How are you feeling today?" I asked, my voice almost normal. "Did you eat the soup I brought yesterday?" The nurse said. "You've been crying." I stopped mid-sentence. "Grandma, I'm fine, And not just today." Her dark eyes, still sharp despite the morphine and the dying, held mine. "You've been crying for weeks. Maybe longer. Don't lie to someone who changed your diapers, Clara Bennett. Tell me." The composure I'd carefully constructed in the car, in the elevator, in the hallway, crumbled like paper in water. "I don't want to burden you," I whispered. "You're sick, and I just want you to rest and—" "The piano." She said it quietly, but with absolute certainty. "They took the piano." I froze. "How did you—" "Your mother came to visit yesterday. First time in a week." Grandma's mouth tightened into a thin line. She was very cheerful. Talked about Madison's beautiful new house. About what a wonderful investment it was. About how the timing worked out perfectly because they'd just liquidated some assets. She paused, her breathing labored. She thought I wouldn't understand what she meant. She thought I was too far gone to put it together. A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. "I should have told you sooner," I said. "I just didn't want." "Tell me now." Grandma's grip on my hand tightened with surprising strength. "Tell me everything." "And Clara?" Her voice dropped, became steel wrapped in velvet. "Don't you dare try to protect them." So I told her. About finding the empty room. About my mother's text dismissing my inheritance as a hobby. About Madison's party, the champagne toasts, the house tour, the casual cruelty of it all. About how no one had asked my permission, sought my input, or acknowledged that something precious had been stolen from me. About how I'd spent my whole life being the understanding one, and where it had gotten me. When I finished, Grandma Rose was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached for the phone beside her bed. "What are you doing?" I asked. What I should have done years ago. Her fingers moved with deliberate precision. "I'm calling my attorney." Grandma's fingers trembled as she dialed, but her voice was pure iron when the call connected. "Jonathan." "It's Rose." A pause. "I know what time it is. This can't wait." I started to protest. "Grandma, it's almost 9 o'clock, we can." She held up one finger, silencing me with the same gesture she'd used when I was 7 and interrupting her phone calls. Even connected to oxygen, even dying, Rose Bennett commanded a room. "They sold it," she said into the phone, her words clipped and precise. "The Steinway. My daughter sold the piano I explicitly left to Clara and used the money to buy Madison a house." Another pause. Her jaw tightened. "Yes, I'm absolutely certain. Patricia came here yesterday gloating about it. She thought I was too sedated to understand." I could hear a man's voice on the other end, rising in pitch, though I couldn't make out the words. "I don't care what complications it creates," Grandma said. "That's what I pay you for." The protection clause was in place for exactly this reason. I knew Patricia would try something eventually. I just didn't think she'd be stupid enough to do it while I was still alive to stop her. She listened, her free hand gripping the bed rail so hard her knuckles went white. No, I don't want to wait. I want it activated now. Tonight. Her breathing was becoming labored, each word an effort, but she didn't stop. The morality clause. The one we discussed when we revised the trust 5 years ago. Anyone who violates the terms of the estate forfeits their inheritance entirely. Execute it. Grandma, please, I whispered. You need to rest. Your heart. She squeezed my hand, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that stopped my breath. My heart is fine, Clara. It's my daughter's that's rotten. She turned back to the phone. Jonathan, I want every asset frozen. The house Patricia and Michael live in, that's technically trust property. Their monthly stipend from the estate, frozen. The college fund they set up for themselves disguised as family emergency reserves, frozen. All of it. My mind was reeling. I'd known Grandma had money, the big house, the antiques, the stories of her younger years, but I'd never understood the scope of it. Had never thought to ask. And the piano sale? Grandma's voice dropped to something dangerous. That was an illegal transfer of trust assets. They had no authority. I want it reversed. I want that house deal investigated. If they used my money, Clara's money, as part of that down payment, I want it all unwound. She was breathing hard now, her oxygen monitor beeping faster. A nurse appeared in the doorway, concern creasing her face. Mrs. Bennet, your heart rate is my own business, Grandma snapped. Then, softer, to Jonathan, I'm changing my will. Emergency revision. You have 48 hours to draft it. Clara gets everything. Patricia and Madison get nothing. Not one penny. Not one photograph. Nothing. She handed me the phone. Tell him, she said, her voice suddenly exhausted. Tell him you agree. I took the phone with shaking hands, and for the first time in my life, I chose myself. I agree, I said. Jonathan Chen's voice came through the phone speaker, calm and methodical despite the late hour. Grandma had insisted on speakerphone so I could hear everything. Mrs. Bennet, I want to make absolutely certain you understand what you're authorizing, he said. The morality clause you established in 2019 is comprehensive and, frankly, nuclear. Once invoked, it cannot be reversed. Are you certain you want to proceed? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Grandma's hand was still in mine, her grip surprisingly strong. Read it to her, Jonathan. I want Clara to hear exactly what's about to happen. Papers rustled on the other end of the line. Jonathan cleared his throat. Section 7.3 of the Rose Margaret Bennet Irrevocable Family Trust states, any beneficiary who engages in theft, fraud, misappropriation, or material breach of trust against another family member shall immediately and permanently forfeit all rights, interests, and benefits under this trust. Such forfeiture shall extend to all assets, including but not limited to real property, financial instruments, personal property, and future distributions. My mouth went dry. All assets? The house your parents live in, Jonathan continued, is owned by the trust. They've been residing there as beneficiaries with a life estate, contingent on good behavior. That life estate is now void. The monthly stipend of $8,000 they receive from the trust investments, void. The Mercedes your mother drives, which was purchased through trust funds, trust property, subject to recovery. I stared at Grandma. She stared back, unflinching. What about Madison? I heard myself ask. Your sister isn't a direct beneficiary yet, she would have inherited through your parents upon Mrs. Bennet's death. However, if trust funds were used in the purchase of her home, that creates a separate legal issue. I'll need to investigate the source of the down payment. It was $95,000, I said, my voice hollow. The exact amount they got for the piano. Then we have clear traceability. Jonathan's tone sharpened with professional interest. Mrs. Bennet, I'll need documentation. Bank records, the bill of sale for the piano, any communications about the transaction. My daughter was kind enough to text Clara about it, Grandma said with bitter satisfaction. I'm sure Clara still has the message. Don't you, sweetheart? I did. I'd read it 50 times, each word burned into my memory. We had to make a practical decision. Madison needed help with her down payment. Perfect. Forward that to me immediately. Jonathan paused. Mrs. Bennet, your daughter and son-in-law are going to fight this. They'll claim you were mentally incompetent, that you were unduly influenced, that. Let them try. Grandma's eyes blazed. I've been having my primary care physician document my mental acuity every week since I entered hospice. Dr. Morrison's notes will show I'm of completely sound mind. And Jonathan? I want you to file everything tomorrow morning. I want them served by noon. That's aggressive. That's the point. She squeezed my hand again. I'm dying, Jonathan. I have maybe 2 weeks left. I will not spend those weeks knowing my daughter is celebrating her theft. I will not leave this world with Clara still being treated like she doesn't matter. Her voice broke on the last word. Execute it, she whispered. Execute everything. And Jonathan? When they come screaming, and they will, don't you dare back down. Yes, ma'am, Jonathan said quietly. I'll have the papers ready by morning. The call came at 11:47 the next morning. I was at the hospice, reading Mary Oliver poems to Grandma while she drifted in and out of sleep, when my phone lit up with my mother's name. I let it ring. It rang again immediately. Then again. Then a text, call me now. Then my father. Then Madison. Then my mother again. Grandma's eyes opened. Answer it, she said, her voice thick with medication but her smile sharp. Put it on speaker. I want to hear this. My hand shook as I accepted the call. What did you do? My mother's scream was so loud I jerked the phone away from my ear. What did you tell her? What lies did you fill her head with? Patricia. Grandma's voice cut through the hysteria like a blade. I'm on the line. And nothing Clara told me was a lie. Silence. Then my father's voice, cold and controlled in a way that was somehow worse than my mother's screaming. Mother, we received some very disturbing legal documents this morning. Documents that suggest you've made rash decisions while under significant medication and emotional distress. I made these decisions with complete clarity, Grandma said. The same clarity I had when I explicitly left the Steinway to Clara. The same clarity you ignored when you sold it without her permission. We made a family decision, my mother started. You made a theft, Grandma interrupted. You stole from your own daughter to finance your favorite's down payment. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Madison needed help. My mother's voice cracked. The market is impossible for young people. We were trying to give her a future. By taking Clara's? Grandma's oxygen monitor was beeping faster, but she didn't slow down. That piano was designated trust property. Protected by a legal instrument you apparently didn't bother to read. You had no authority to sell it. This is insane. My father's voice had shifted to the tone he used in boardrooms, commanding and dismissive. You're being manipulated by a child who's jealous of her sister's success. We'll contest this. We have doctors who will testify that you're not competent to make these kinds of decisions. Try it. Grandma's smile was terrifying. I have 8 weeks of documented psychiatric evaluations proving my complete mental competency. Dr. Morrison has been very thorough. And Michael? You might want to check your bank accounts. Your trust distributions have been frozen pending investigation. The silence that followed was profound. What? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. The house you live in, the car you drive, the monthly income you've enjoyed for 15 years, all trust property. All contingent on following the terms of the trust. Terms that explicitly forbid theft from other beneficiaries. Grandma paused for breath, her hand gripping mine. You violated those terms. You forfeited everything. You can't do this. I already did. The papers you received this morning are just the beginning. By end of business today, you'll receive notice that Madison's house purchase is under legal review. Turns out when you use stolen trust funds for a down payment, the entire transaction becomes fraudulent. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. Mother, please, my father tried. You should have thought about please before you erased your daughter. Grandma's voice was fading now, exhaustion catching up with rage. You have 48 hours to vacate the house. Jonathan will be in touch about returning the Mercedes and any other trust property in your possession. She ended the call. Then she looked at me, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. I should have done this years ago, she whispered. I'm so sorry I waited until I was dying. They arrived 2 hours later like a storm rolling in from the coast, all fury and disbelief and the kind of entitlement that comes from never being told no. I heard them before I saw them. My mother's voice echoing down the hospice hallway, sharp and demanding. I don't care about visiting hours. That's my mother. You cannot keep me from seeing her. The nurse at the station tried to respond, but my father's voice cut through. We're family. We have every right to be here. Now either show us to her room or I'll find it myself. Grandma was asleep, her breathing shallow and rattling. The morphine had been increased an hour ago. She'd used the last of her strength on that phone call, and we both knew it. I stood and moved to the door just as they rounded the corner. My mother saw me first. Her face was blotchy and red, mascara smudged under her eyes. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. Behind her, my father's jaw was set in that rigid way that meant he was barely containing his rage. And Madison looked genuinely confused, like she'd walked into the wrong movie and couldn't understand the plot. You. My mother's finger shot out, pointing at me like a weapon. You manipulative little. Mrs. Bennet, please lower your voice. The nurse had followed them, her expression professional but firm. This is a hospice facility. We have other patients who. I don't care about other patients. My mother pushed past the nurse, heading straight for me. I care about what this ungrateful child has done to this family. I stepped back instinctively, my body remembering years of making myself smaller, quieter, less. But something in me had changed. Maybe it was Grandma's hand in mine last night. Maybe it was hearing her fight for me when I'd never fought for myself. Maybe it was just that I'd finally hit bottom and found something solid to stand on. Stop, I said. Not loud, but clear. You're not coming in here. My mother laughed, a brittle, breaking sound. You don't get to tell me what to do. That's my mother in there, and you've poisoned her against her own family. You've always been jealous of Madison, always resentful that she got the opportunities you were too mediocre to earn yourself, and now you're using a dying woman's confusion too. I'm not confused. Grandma's voice was weak but audible from the bed behind me. And everything I did with complete clarity. My mother pushed past me into the room. My father and Madison followed. I moved to Grandma's bedside, standing between her and them like a shield I should have been years ago. Mother, please. My father's voice was controlled again, reasonable. The voice he used to close business deals. You're not well. You're on heavy medication. You don't understand what you've done, the legal complications, the family implications. We can fix this. We can make this all go away if you just sign. I'm not signing anything except your disinheritance papers. Grandma's eyes were barely open, but her voice held. Get out of my room. You gave Clara everything. Madison's voice cracked, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely hurt rather than entitled. The house, the money, all of it. What about me? What about the fact that I'm your granddaughter too? You got a house bought with stolen money, Grandma said. That's what you get. We didn't steal, my mother started. The door opened behind them. Jonathan Chin stepped in, looking crisp and professional despite the chaos. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe 45, with silver at his temples and the kind of calm that comes from seeing everything twice. Mrs. Patricia Bennett? Mr. Michael Bennett? He extended a manila folder. I'm Jonathan Chen, representing Rose Bennett's estate. I have documents that require your immediate attention. My father didn't take the folder. We're not accepting anything until our attorney reviews. You don't have to accept them for them to be legally valid. Jonathan set the folder on the bedside table. These are formal notices of disinheritance under Section 7.3 of the Rose Margaret Bennett Irrevocable Family Trust. As of 9 a.m. this morning, you've been removed as beneficiaries. All assets, properties, and distributions previously allocated to you have been reassigned. This is elder abuse, my mother said, her voice rising again. She's being manipulated. We'll fight this. We'll prove she wasn't competent. You're welcome to try. Jonathan pulled out another document. This is a notarized statement from Dr. Lisa Morrison, Mrs. Bennett's primary care physician, confirming that as of yesterday evening, Rose Bennett was of sound mind and capable of making legal decisions. It's accompanied by psychiatric evaluations conducted weekly for the past month. I also have recordings. The room went silent. Recordings? My father's voice was very quiet. Mrs. Bennett has been recording her conversations with family members since entering hospice. A precaution suggested by her previous attorney when concerns about family dynamics first arose. Jonathan's expression didn't change. Yesterday's conversation included Patricia Bennett explicitly stating that Clara's inheritance was just a hobby and that Madison's needs took priority. I have 17 minutes of audio. My mother's face went white. You recorded me? Your own daughter? I protected myself, Grandma whispered. From my own daughter. Madison sank into a chair, her hands shaking. What about my house? Tyler and I just signed the papers. We have a mortgage. The down payment is being investigated as fraudulent use of trust assets, Jonathan said, not unkindly. Depending on what we find, you may need to return those funds or face foreclosure proceedings. We don't have $95,000 to return. Madison's voice broke into sobs. Tyler's parents co-signed the mortgage based on our down payment. If we lose that, we lose everything. Then you understand, Grandma said, her voice fading, how Clara felt. My mother lunged forward, and I instinctively moved between them, my hands up. Security appeared in the doorway. 2 officers, calm and ready. These people need to leave, Jonathan said quietly. They're upsetting my client. You can't do this, my mother said, but she was already backing toward the door, my father's hand on her elbow. Clara, please. Talk to her. Fix this. You've always been reasonable. Don't let her destroy this family over a stupid piano. Get out, I said. My voice didn't shake. And don't come back. The security officers escorted them out. Madison's sobs echoed down the hallway. My father's voice, low and threatening, promised lawyers and lawsuits and consequences. The door closed. The room was suddenly, blessedly quiet. I turned back to Grandma. Her eyes were closed, her breathing labored. But her hand found mine in the dimness, and she squeezed with what little strength she had left. I'm so tired, she whispered. Then rest, I said, my own tears finally falling. I've got this now. You can rest. She smiled without opening her eyes. My brave girl, she said. You were always my brave girl. Grandma Rose died on a Thursday morning, 2 days after the siege, while I was reading her the final stanzas of The Summer Day. The nurse had warned me the night before. Her breathing is changing, she'd said gently. It won't be long now. If there's anything you need to say it soon. But we'd already said everything that mattered. I'd told her I loved her. She'd told me I was enough. That was all we needed. I was holding her hand when her breathing simply stopped. No dramatic final moment, no last words. Just a quiet exhale, and then peace. The machines beeped their alerts, but I didn't move. I sat there, her hand growing cool in mine, and felt the weight of being truly alone for the first time in my life. The funeral was small. I'd wanted it that way, and as executor of her estate, I had the authority to decide. Just me, Jonathan Chen, Dr. Morrison, a few of Grandma's friends from her book club, and the hospice nurse who'd sung to her in those final days. My parents weren't invited. Madison sent 17 texts begging to attend. I didn't respond to any of them. We held the service at the cemetery where great-grandmother Margaret was buried. I played a recording of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece Grandma had loved most, the one she'd requested for this moment years ago when she was still healthy enough to plan her own death. As the casket was lowered, I placed a single white rose on top and whispered the only truth that mattered: "Thank you for seeing me." The will reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday at Jonathan Chen's office downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, my hands wrapped around a coffee I couldn't drink, my stomach in knots despite knowing what was coming. My parents were already there. They sat on the opposite side of the waiting room, my father in his suit, my mother in black that looked more like armor than morning clothes. They didn't acknowledge me. I didn't acknowledge them. We sat in hostile silence until Jonathan's assistant called us in. Madison wasn't there. Jonathan had mentioned she was dealing with complications regarding her property situation. Translation: the house was in foreclosure, and she was too devastated to face me. Jonathan's office was all dark wood and leather, the kind of place that smelled like old money and ironclad decisions. We sat in chairs arranged in a semicircle. Jonathan stood behind his desk, Grandma's will in front of him, a document I'd never seen but had shaped the last 72 hours of my life. "Thank you all for coming," Jonathan began, his tone professionally neutral. Rose Bennett's last will and testament was executed on the evening of her death, with proper witnesses and notarization. It supersedes all previous versions. I'll read the relevant sections now. My father leaned forward. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. Jonathan adjusted his glasses and began to read. I, Rose Margaret Bennett, being of sound mind and body, there's the standard legal language here, establishing competency, do hereby bequeath my entire estate to my granddaughter, Clara Elizabeth Bennett, in recognition of her character, her integrity, and her unwavering commitment to honoring beauty and truth in a family that often valued neither. The silence in the room was absolute. To my daughter Patricia and her husband Michael, I leave nothing. Their years of cruelty to Clara, culminating in the theft of the Steinway piano I explicitly designated for her, have demonstrated that they value money over family and appearance over substance. They are not entitled to benefit from my life's work. My mother made a sound like she'd been struck. To my granddaughter Madison, I leave nothing. While she is young and perhaps redeemable, she has shown herself willing to accept stolen goods without question and to celebrate her own elevation at the expense of her sister's dignity. Perhaps deprivation will teach her what privilege has not. Jonathan looked up. The estate consists of the family home, valued at approximately $1.2 million, a diversified investment portfolio worth approximately $3.4 million, various personal effects and antiques valued at approximately $400,000, and cash assets of approximately $600,000. The total estate is valued at roughly $5.6 million, all of which passes directly to Clara. I couldn't breathe. My father stood up abruptly. This is unconscionable. We'll contest it. We have grounds. You have nothing, Jonathan said calmly. Your mother anticipated your response. She had psychiatric evaluations, medical documentation, and recorded conversations establishing both her competency and your behavior. Any contest will be expensive, public, and unsuccessful. I'd advise you to accept the situation with whatever grace you can muster. Grace? My mother's voice was shrill. She's leaving us with nothing. We gave our lives to caring for her, managing her affairs. You gave your lives to living off her trust fund while neglecting the daughter you were supposed to protect. Jonathan's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something sharper underneath. Mrs. Bennet was very clear about her reasoning. I have her written statement if you'd like me to read it. No, my father said quickly. He grabbed my mother's arm. We're leaving. Our attorney will be in touch. He can try, Jonathan said. The will is airtight. They left without looking at me. The door closed with a decisive click. I sat in the leather chair, my hands shaking, my mind trying to process numbers that didn't feel real. There's one more thing, Jonathan said gently. He pulled an envelope from the folder. She left this for you. Asked me to give it to you privately. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive paper. My name was written across it in Grandma's elegant script. I opened it with trembling fingers. My dearest Clara. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're sitting in Jonathan's office learning that you've inherited more money than you probably ever imagined having. I can picture your face, that quiet shock, that uncertainty about whether you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve every penny, every piece of furniture, every memory contained in that house. You deserve it because you were the only one who loved me for something other than what I could give you. The money will help. It will give you security, freedom, choices. But that's not why I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you because you were always the one who understood what mattered. Not the house or the investments or the social standing. The music. The love. The truth. You saw beauty in broken things and possibility in overlooked moments. You were kind even when kindness wasn't returned. You were strong even when no one acknowledged your strength. Your mother will hate you for this. Madison will probably never speak to you again. People will say I was cruel, that I destroyed a family over a piano. They're wrong. Your parents destroyed this family years ago, one small cruelty at a time. I'm just refusing to reward them for it. Here's what I want you to do with your inheritance. Buy yourself a piano. Not the Steinway, that's gone, and we can't get it back. But buy yourself a beautiful instrument and play it every single day. Play for joy. Play for sorrow. Play because you can, because you're alive, because music is truth made audible. Buy yourself a home. Nothing ostentatious. Just a space that's yours, where no one can make you feel small or unworthy or invisible. And then, my darling girl, live. Travel. Create. Love. Make mistakes. Be gloriously, unapologetically yourself. Don't let them take your voice ever again. I love you. I have always loved you. You were the best thing my family ever produced, and I'm so grateful I got to know you. Play something beautiful for me. All my love. Grandma Rose. I sat in Jonathan's office and cried until I had no tears left. Then I folded the letter carefully, tucked it in my purse, and walked out into the afternoon sunlight as a woman worth $5.6 million who still felt exactly like herself. 6 months later. The apartment wasn't large. Just a 2-bedroom in an old building with crown molding and hardwood floors and windows that let in the kind of light that changes throughout the day. It was mine. Every square foot of it. The Steinway stood in the living room, not the 1890 original, but a beautifully restored 1920s model I'd found through an antique dealer in Boston. It had taken 3 months to locate and another month to restore. The ivory keys were smooth under my fingers, the tone rich and resonant. On top of the piano sat 3 things: a framed photo of Grandma Rose from her jazz club days, laughing at something off camera, the letter she'd written me, now encased in archival plastic, and a single white rose in a crystal vase that I replaced every week. I taught piano now. Not at the community center, though I still volunteered there twice a week, but privately, in my home, to students who wanted to learn rather than students whose parents wanted to say their children played piano. I was selective. I was expensive. I was worth it. Madison's Instagram had gone quiet 3 months ago. The last post was a carefully worded announcement about downsizing and new beginnings that didn't mention foreclosure or fraud investigations or the fact that Tyler's parents had disowned them both over the scandal. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Tyler had moved in with his aunt in Connecticut. That she'd gotten a job as a receptionist at a dental office. That she'd aged in a way that had nothing to do with years. I felt sorry for her sometimes. Then I remembered the housewarming party, the champagne toast, the casual certainty that she deserved everything while I deserved nothing. The feeling passed. My parents had moved to a smaller town in Pennsylvania. My father had taken a job with a former business associate, a significant step down from his previous position. My mother had taken down all her social media accounts after someone posted about the wool contest, and their loss, in a local community group. They'd tried to sue. The case was dismissed within 6 weeks. Their attorney had withdrawn after reading Grandma's documentation. They'd tried to reach out. Emails, texts, even a letter that arrived with a return address I didn't recognize. I deleted the emails unread. Blocked the number. Returned the letter unopened. Some people didn't deserve forgiveness. Some bridges were meant to burn. I sat down at the piano as afternoon light slanted through the windows, turning the room golden. My fingers found the keys, and I began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece I'd played at Grandma's funeral, the piece she'd loved. But halfway through, I shifted into something else. Something improvised. Something that started as sorrow but transformed into joy, into possibility, into the sound of a woman who'd finally learned that being kind didn't mean being invisible. The music filled the apartment, spilling out through open windows into the street below. And somewhere, I liked to think, Grandma Rose was listening. Smiling. Proud.